everybody, it's Stacie Duffy here, your Denver Metro real estate resource. And yes, I'm going to talk about contracts and crap that you don't care about until you go to sell your house and you don't hire an agent, or you hire a bad agent, or you hire one that maybe isn't up to date on the contracts, because most agents don't take the classes on these things as soon as they come out. I always do. Our brokerage always does, because we want our people to understand what's going on. Quick example, guys. One little box in here in this nice now 24-page legal contract that you use to sell your house. One little box that is now in there that was not in there a month or two ago, 6 weeks ago, can cost you easily $3,000, depending on how it's checked, if it's checked, or if it's blank. A lot of agents are leaving these things blank. I had a listing the first week of January. I got lots of offers with blank boxes, okay? Blank boxes means ambiguity, which means we don't know who's going to pay what. As a seller, you probably want to know what your net proceeds are going to be, right? Most people are concerned about how much money is going to get in their pocket afterwards. You probably don't want to have to pay $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 in fees and closing costs that you didn't know about, or didn't plan on paying, or wouldn't have paid last year, but the contract changed and your agent didn't know what was going on, okay? It is part of our job to know this, to understand this, and to be able to explain it to our clients, okay? We are not attorneys, but we are licensed for this document that we help all of our clients with. So having an agent that understands these things and knows these things will make a difference in your proceeds. I can't tell you how frustrated I get when I see listings from agents that, one, don't fill out the listing very well, so it damages their client, or could damage their client as far as what kind of proceeds and what kind of offers they get, because the listing is presented very, very poorly. The pictures are bad, that's blank, the information's wrong. I see square footage wrong. I've seen square footage wrong on a house. Half as big as it was supposed to be, because they didn't show that the basement was finished, because they didn't include the basement at all. That matters, guys. So having an agent that understands not only how to present the property well, how to control the showing process, that's another big piece, but the contracts is really important. So I'm going to just summarize some of the big contract changes for y'all. I know you probably don't care. The point of this is to ask your agent, have they taken the new contracts class? Do they know what the changes are? Do they understand how to represent you and what those potential pitfalls could be that could cost you a bunch of money later, okay? So things to ask your agent when you're going to be listing your home, okay, as far as if they're aware of the contract changes. Major changes to dates and deadlines, okay? Dates and deadlines drives the process here in Colorado. We are now past, it starts at the bottom of one page, we are past an entire page of dates and deadlines, okay? That is how many things there are to keep track of. There were a lot of changes there as far as the buyer's rights regarding their loan. That's always kind of been the safety net for a lot of buyers, is a loan termination deadline. That has changed significantly. So that changes when buyers have the right to terminate and get their earnest money back, okay? That can make a huge difference if your buyer leaves or defaults or walks out on you, doesn't pay attention to their deadlines, and before, where they could have gotten their earnest money back, now they may not be able to, okay? So be sure to that, as well as when the dates and deadlines actually expire. Before it was 11:59 p.m. Now there's an option to put something in as far as a time, which is great, but it only affects some of the deadlines, not all of the deadlines. So you may miss your deadline on something, and your agent may not understand how that section reads in the contract, because they didn't realize that changed this year. And that can affect majorly what your rights are as a seller, as well as whether the buyer has the right to their earnest money back and all of that stuff, okay? We're talking thousands and thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of dollars in this kind of stuff. So having someone who understands this, they more than pay for themselves in the process, okay? So dates and deadlines, there's a lot of changes there between time of day and loan. Section 15, fees. That was the one that I mentioned when I first started. 15 is a nightmare, and always has been. And considering how many HOAs we have in our state, it is now, there's a lot of red there, guys. That means there's a lot of changes. The draft is the state label as far as all the changes they've made, so someone doesn't actually try to use this as a contract when they're writing something up, this version. So there's been a lot of changes to who pays what fees regarding HOA fees, utility transfer fees, water transfer fees. There's a lot of those things. I will tell you, the number one thing when I'm representing a seller, and this has been the case for many, many years, I check this section and inevitably many of the boxes are blank on the offers we get. I'm like, blank, just check one. At least if you don't know if there is a fee because you didn't have the time to call the HOA on a Saturday night because they're not open, fine, whatever. But at least check that, hey, who's going to pay for it? Buyer's going to pay for it, seller's going to pay for it, y'all are going to split it, okay? A lot of agents don't pay attention to these things and it costs their seller thousands of dollars. This is the number one place I can save my sellers money when we're looking through multiple offer situations, because agents don't pay attention to these things and they write things and they're not seller friendly, even though it's a seller's market and you have the leverage on those things. So, but there's a lot of things in there now. Working capital was not in there before. That is unbelievably expensive when you're talking condo fees, 55 plus communities, anything that charges an upfront working capital charge. Historically, customarily, it's been that, okay, the buyer would pay that and then the seller would get theirs given back to them potentially. Sometimes it's refundable, sometimes it's not. That's buried in your HOA docs. But now there's a checkbox. People's checkbox when it comes to fees, buyers love to ask sellers to pay for things. So now sellers are going to be on the hook to pay for that if their agent isn't paying attention, and that's what the buyer offered when they wouldn't have been in the past, okay? That and utility transfer fees. That's really ambiguous, guys. Like, ambiguous, sorry. Ambiguous is not a word. Highly caffeinated, sorry. So utility transfer fees. So is the buyer going to expect you to pay their Excel gas setup fee? Okay. There's a lot of stuff in here that people need to be paying attention to, and that's what your agent's job is. So make sure you ask them that they know, like, hey, I've heard there's a lot of contract changes this year, especially when it comes to fees. Do you know what those are? Like, have you taken a class on those? Please interview your agents on this stuff. If you're selling in Denver Metro, I would love the opportunity for an interview. I love to represent my sellers and know how to get them more money and know how to pay for myself, okay? So please feel free to reach out to me directly. My contact info is on my website. Link for that is down below. I'd love the opportunity for an interview because you should be interviewing agents. If you're hiring someone to do a job for you, you should be interviewing multiple people, okay? Those are probably two big ones for me. There's a lot of change in the leased items, and a lot of people don't think about leased items, but if you have solar panels, this is a big deal. Solar panels, security systems, if you're transferring cable equipment, anything that's considered leased like that. But the security systems and the solar panels are a really big deal here as far as how those are handled, and who pays for what and how that transfers over. Tax certificates is, to be honest, it's a mess. So I understand why they did what they did. They changed some of the language around tax certificates. This can put sellers at risk, okay, of pretty much your buyer walking and taking their earnest money for something you didn't even know. Tax certificates, the counties, a lot of the counties are really behind on providing these. So the problem is control. We don't have a lot of control over it, but understanding that and marking those deadlines is appropriate and having them early on in the process. So if they are late, the buyer doesn't have another, loophole way to get out of it, and screw the seller in the situation. Or if I'm representing a buyer and it's my job to represent them and I know those opportunities in the contract, and if we haven't gotten a tax certificate yet and they get it and they don't like it, they have the opportunity to terminate for that reason really late in the process and protect their earnest money. So tax certificates and understanding how they can impact the seller if the county is behind on those and isn't providing them is a big deal in the new changes in the contract, okay? And disclosure requirements. I'm going to do a whole video on disclosure at some point because sellers love to not talk about things. They're so worried that someone's not going to buy their house because they know something. If y'all haven't heard, it's a seller's market right now. Sorry, I'm going to get a little country on y'all. Born and raised in Texas here. Bless your heart if you think now is the time to keep secrets because someone's not going to want to buy your house. Okay? Sellers and disclosure. When you try to hide things, that is when the state gets really angry. Okay? They like to protect buyers. I'm not going to go into the whole ideological thought process behind why we have a buyer-friendly contract, but they have added language in here that says, seller, by the way, if you're not disclosing the things you should have, you can be considered in default of this contract even after you close. which means that buyer now has even more protection to come back to you afterwards and say, you were supposed to tell me this and you didn't. By the way, you need to buy this house back from me and pay me a bunch of money in damages, okay? So I'm going to go into, and once I shoot it and post it, I haven't shot it yet, but I'll link it up here and down below on seller disclosure and all about that, because there's so much misconception and bad advice, to be honest, bad advice, ignorant advice from agents and seller disclosure. But sellers, just be aware, because I know you're probably not going to read this contract. You're going to get 5, 10, 15 offers if your agent has done a good job of marketing your property. They should explain to you what the concerns are in the offers they got, what needs to be countered to make sure that you know who's paying what fees and to benefit your situation, because that's the agent's job, is to be your advocate and advocate for your preferences and your rights and help you accomplish your goals. But disclosure is a big one, guys. They put the sellers on the hook in here, even more so than they already were. They're calling it out because they're tired. The state is tired of sellers trying to hide things and not telling things about the property and disclosing things that they know. So please make sure you have a good agent that understands all of these things, okay? I never want anyone to be in a situation where they have to go to court over property. That is completely avoidable. So have a good agent if you are looking to buy or sell here in the Denver metro area. I love knowing these things in detail. I geek out on these things, and I love advocating for my clients and getting them a better result that they didn't even know was possible, and making sure that they don't get struck with hidden fees later down the road, because everyone hates that and it's never a good experience. So if you'd like to reach out to me directly, I'd love the opportunity to interview for the job to represent you on either the buy or the sell side of the process. Given our market situation, obviously I prefer sell side right now. Buyer stuff is a little bit tough, but I want to advocate for my clients and help them accomplish their goals in the best way possible. So my contact information is on my website. Link for that is down below. If you have any other questions on this, I am not an attorney. I can only advise on certain things. However, please feel free to put those down below. If you got caught or got screwed or ended up paying a bunch of stuff at closing that you didn't know about because your agent didn't know or didn't pay attention or something like that, I'm so sorry. Bitchfest comment down below, whatever would help you feel better about that. But please interview agents and ask them if they are up to date on the current contract. Okay, so thanks so much for the time, and best of luck in this absolutely crazy market right now.